Hi. I wanted to talk a little bit about why landscape of mothers is important. And I'm outside in the hopes that this video is better than inside. That was a little echoey, but now you might hear my chickens. Anyway, I'm going to assume they're not going to be that distracting. Landscape of mothers, I think the reason it's important to do mother work, so in this case now we're saying, what is the mother of landscape of mothers? And there's a reason that it's important to have conversations about mothering. The dominant conversations in our culture tend to be around either glorifying the mother or vilifying the mother, which means we get put into a bin of either a good mother or a bad mother. And this binary of good and bad can be really detrimental to us actually parenting, right? When we get more concerned about whether we're doing it right or whether we're, or whether we look good or don't look good or whether we're conforming or not conforming or whatever, we get out of the relating that I think most of us are here because we want in our parenting, right? We want to have relationships with our children. We want to teach them how to have happy and healthy relationships. And so we're wanting parenting to be more about, attachment and regard and care than we are about whether or not somebody is good or bad inside of it. And so to be honest, Landscape of Mothers, one of my personal goals inside of Landscape of Mothers is to really ditch the good and bad conversation or the good and bad dichotomy, right? There's so much more to us. When we come to mothering, that's not the whole of who we are either. We are whole humans aside of the role that we have as parents. And so I wanted to just name this about Landscape of Mothers, that when we glorify motherhood, we have a tendency to glorify aspects of it that are damaging. The selflessness, the constant presence, whatever. And it's not that those things are inherently bad, but to hold someone to that standard, individual humans can't actually do that. That there are just times where our capacity isn't there, and it's hard to show up fully in parenting. It's hard to be completely open. It's hard to give up what we want as whole humans in order to make someone else's life work out so that they're not uncomfortable or not unhappy. And so all parenting, mothering in particular, being not gendered as in what the woman does with the child, but whoever's being the caregiver, needs to also be tending to their own world and their own life, which means that they're not always 100% present, that they're not always 100% available, and because they have needs as human beings also, which is why we tend to say things like it takes a village, right? Because it does, because one person can't be everything to another human, even the sweetest, tiniest, most compelling little humans. So the importance of Landscape of Mothers then comes from opting out of the cultural dialogue in which we either hold a mother totally responsible for who her child is, which encourages this enmeshment around what our children do are reflective of who we are, and stuff like that takes away the sovereignty and individuality of the child. And if we want them to grow up and have good relationships, this isn't what healthy relationship is built on. So my sense is that we're here because we want these things, right? You're watching this video because you're contemplating this stuff too. And how do I go about making these balances? And how do I go about opting out of some of the ways that I think about parenting that turn out to not be fulfilling to relationship, to actually relating and being with our children. And of course, this relates to all of our other relationships too. But in Landscape of Mothers, we're really focused on, or at least this lens or perspective on Landscape of Mothers. So we're really focusing on how does this inform our parenting? And especially if we were parented in those ways that resemble the cultural dialogue, then we may not have gotten the relating skills that we need in order to do differently with our children. And so when we're moving into parenting in this way, we're moving into a landscape that's unknown. We don't know what we need here. We don't know what's required. We don't know fully what we can expect. We don't know what the sort of rules of engagement are. We don't know how to be in it. And that's where Landscape of Mothers becomes at least a map, an orientation, a saying like, let's start here, knowing that there's full well that there's going to be other places we're going to need to go and other skills we're going to need to uncover. And yet we have somewhere to begin. So welcome to Landscape of Mothers, if this is where you are. And I encourage you to look for the book. If you don't have it yet, you can get it from most online book retailers. There's an introductory course here on YouTube, and you can find me on Instagram and Facebook also. So hope to see you one of those places.